Panther people, what up? What the heck is up with the Carolina Panthers? Is it Bryce? Is it Frank Reich? Is it the players? Is it the system? Who are we blaming? Let's find out. Going on, you watch the Panthers post with Phil Perkins. Thanks for joining. Yes, I am just as upset and defeated and depressed and just down and out. I actually feel like the wind is out of my sails as you are right now with the Carolina Panthers starting 0-4, probably going 0-6 if we're being real. But I cannot stand right now. What I'm seeing is the Bryce Young slander. The fact that, yes, it doesn't help that CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson are balling out of control. I swear, if Will Levis was chucking 400 yards and 3 touchdowns every single game, I'd actually be losing my gosh darn mind. I talked to Coach Gene Clemons. He's out in Savannah, Georgia right now. Not only is he an English and journalism teacher, a guy after my own heart, he's also a football coach. He's a play-by-play guy. He also writes for The Athletic for fantasy purposes, and he also is a YouTuber. Guy's got doing everything. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Gene Clemons. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. It's all things youth sports and football as well. Coach Gene Clemons. Subscribe to him on YouTube, and also check him out on this as well on Panthers Post. He talks to me about, is it Bryce's fault? Is it Frank Reich? Is it the players? Is it the system? Should they trade during the season for a veteran wide receiver? Good move, bad move? He lets us know. All right, Coach. It's only heading into week 5, and Panther fans are stressing out. We are stressing out right now. If you're like me, you feel cheated a little bit, lied to a little bit. We were sold this team that, heading into the NFC South, a division that's kind of in flux. They could totally win this division right now. Talked about playoffs. Bryce Young, he's the smartest rookie quarterback we've seen forever. He'll be able to figure it out quickly, but it just hasn't happened. So from you watching, as a coach, as an actual professional teacher as well, like what are you seeing? What is wrong with the Panthers?
Well, I think one of the things you have to remember is that everybody is learning everything in real time. The coach is learning the team is learning the coach, the players are learning each other. And then you've got a quarterback who is going from an offense that was centered around a lot of explosives and explosive elements to a team that just does not have a lot of explosive elements. So I think that they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to find their way. I don't think it's a surprise that when you saw Andy Dalton come in, you saw an uptick in a little of the efficiency, because the way that team is built, it's built kind of for an Andy Dalton-like offense where he can just kind of manage. Like Bryce Young is a playmaker. He's a guy that you want to have explosive elements so that he can make plays. Well, if you don't have those explosive elements, and it's no disrespect to any of their players, but they are not the home run hitting things. They're singles and doubles and triples hitters. They're not home run hitters. Even Miles Sanders, he's not really a home run hitter, but he's a guy who can get you a big play.
So that seems to be the case. Yeah, I think Panther fans put their blinders on when analysts like yourself looked at the Panthers roster and was like, this is probably one of the worst surrounding cast, that you can put a rookie around. And, I know as a fan, I'm like, no. DJ Chark is super fast, and Adam Thiel's a chain mover. Hayden Hurst is good, but yeah, it's just not panning out. And I think it was Damian Parsons from the Draft Network who was saying, I think the same way you were saying, Bryce Young is a point guard, but he has no shooters around him. And so it's not, because there is a little bit of hate being towards Bryce right now, and I don't see it. It's mainly from fans. I'm not seeing professional coaches or analysts saying that. But is it as simple as that? Is this the playmakers just aren't there right now?
Well, I mean, just to use your analogy, he's not just a point guard that doesn't have playmakers or shooters around him. He's a fast break point guard. So he not only needs shooters around him, he needs people who can run with him. And I just don't think this offense is constructed. And I think that happens a lot when people are enamored with talents. They don't always look at their roster and say, can we support the talent that we're enamored with? If you think about some other, like the other NFC South teams, you have a quarterback in Atlanta where they want to run the ball, but he's not necessarily a running threat. So how is he complementing what they really want to do and what they really want to be? Down in Tampa,
Right.
you have you have Baker Mayfield, who is a guy who really should be a manager, and a guy, but then you have these elements outside that says, get me the ball. Like I need it right now. Like that doesn't always jibe together. And then in New Orleans, you have explosive elements that they can't get the ball to because their quarterback is a game manager. And so,
Right.
like, it's interesting if you took Bryce Young and put him on New Orleans and took Carr and put him on Carolina, both teams might actually be better for it. Like
Right.
that's the funny thing about it, is that team in Carolina, that offense in Carolina is a lot more constructed for a quarterback similar to him, to Carr, whereas those explosive elements in New Orleans that they can't get the ball to downfield because Carr doesn't push the ball downfield like that. They're kind of just sitting around hoping he gets injured so that Jameis Winston can come in there and throw. Except they won't just bench him and put Jameis Winston there to try to stretch the
Right.
field, which is probably to the detriment of New Orleans. So I think if you look around the NFC South and all four teams, they have talents that don't necessarily all fit into the puzzle the way that you would want them to fit.
Oh, so they're all in the wrong spot right now. And I remember people didn't want Derek Carr in Carolina, but if they knew, because I know when he was up there, kind of up for grabs, now seeing what the offense is in Carolina, as you mentioned, it wouldn't actually work
You
out. But
can't get rid of
I,
a DJ Moore and then bring in a quarterback and go, well, we need receiver help.
and which is now happening, which is now we're hearing that from Ian
Right.
Rappaport. Was like, well, they're not done. They're going to go get a wide receiver. And I'm seeing so many tweets now. I'm like, hey, let me mock up DJ Moore in a Carolina Panthers jersey. I wonder if they could get a refund because Chicago doesn't seem like it's going anywhere right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, he had his best game in for the Bears this past week. They let Justin Fields throw the ball around, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
magically, they moved the ball. But I think that's what they're missing. They're missing that explosive element outside. Carolina has always had a tight end that was a difference maker. I don't see that difference maker at tight end now. I think that a guy like Adam Thielen is a great story, but he's a possession receiver. He's a
Right.
guy who's
100%.
going to move the chains for you, work short to intermediate routes. He's not a guy that's going to be able to do what he probably could do back when he was much younger and able to really use his athleticism. So, like, where does that leave a guy like Bryce? I know it's always convenient to blame the quarterback. It's also always convenient to give the quarterback the praise. But in this case, I think that there's you just have to look at the roster construction and go, this wasn't a move for 1 year. This is a move for the next 10 years. So over the next couple of years, they need to put weapons around him in order to be able to accentuate the things that he does well.
And I hope they do that too. And with that though, like, do you think it's the right move right now? Like you're saying, this is not a build for this year. It's a build for next 5-10 years. Does it make sense to try to give up assets to draft or to trade for a veteran wide receiver at this point in his career, just to try to salvage his rookie year and not, as Cam Newton said, he was on the KJ Wright podcast. You don't want him to get scarred from his rookie year because how poor it was. Does it make sense to try to trade for a veteran weapon now?
I mean, I think that if you trade for a veteran weapon, that's great. But is it a veteran weapon that's just for this year, or is it a weapon that they're going to be able to use for the next 2, 3, 4 years? If it's for the next few years, yes. If it's just for this year, then what are we doing? Like, there's no NFC South team that's winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
None of them. All of them have holes. All of them have flaws. That's why Carolina feels like they had a chance to win the division, because the division is so weak. But if the division is so weak, right? If the division is so weak and you think you have a chance to win the division, Does that mean you think you have a chance to win the Super Bowl? Because trades, in my opinion, should only be made if you have a chance to either win the Super Bowl or if it sets you up for a run within the next 2 to 3 years. If not, what are you trading for? Like,
Right.
why are you bringing on those contracts? Why are you bringing on those assets that are going to do nothing but just muddle up your salary cap? Go ahead,
Right.
build through the draft. There's always talent in the draft. It is a proven methodology. You do not have to do what the Rams did, which is go out and get every trade asset free agent and totally sell out for one championship and then have to blow it up. You don't have to do what Tampa Bay did, which is go out and get Tom Brady and then continue to keep on adding all of these aging veterans to try to make the run last as long as possible. No, add some youth to that thing, and now maybe you got a good little mix of the gumbo that gives you some veteran presence, but also some youthful exuberance that you can add into the mix.
Absolutely. No, that I like that one you mentioned before. So talk about in terms of the play calling and the philosophy. Is it that do you think a changeup? Because this is what people are calling for right now as well. Like Frank Reich handing over the play calling duties to Thomas Brown, who comes from that L.A. Rams system, where he could be a bit more. He's a younger coach. We'd assume he's exciting because he comes from that Ram tree. Do you think that could make a difference in this year if they're not? If they were to follow your lead and not trade for a veteran receiver right now?
Well, I'll tell you that the one thing that I looked at,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that I looked at is I don't know what the fascination was with Frank Wright. If we're being honest,
It was a bit of a
right?
letdown. It was a letdown
Like,
for sure.
I'm not exactly sure why somebody said, "Hey, we're going to go from what we had the last few years to Frank Wright," and after what we just saw him do in Indianapolis. Like, to me, that made no sense whatsoever. So I think what they have to do now is decide, can Frank Wright can he be flexible? Can he be like some of these older coaches that we've seen who've gone back in the lab and sharpened the pencil with some new stuff? Like, we've seen it with McCarthy in Dallas. A lot of people give credit to people that they should not give credit to for the reason why Dallas's offense has been so good. But when McCarthy took over, there was a legitimate shift. They went from like the 10th or the 12th or the 13th best offense to a top 5 offense. The offensive coordinator was still there at the time. So that was a guy who got in his bag. He didn't just go from one NFL job to the next. He actually took time to kind of like reinvent himself or just reintroduce himself into the world of play calling and what he needed to do to be successful. And they're having success because of it. I think Frank Wright might have to do the same thing. I don't know for certain because I'm not in the locker room, but he might have to go out and say, "Hey, listen, either I need to pass it on or I need to let go of my hubris. I need to let go of my ego and what I think this should be and do what makes sense for my personnel."
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? And that's what I thought he was almost like, to me, when he was brought in, he has all these young, hot offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, quarterback coaches. I thought he was almost like Splinter and they're like the Ninja Turtles. And I think eventually he's kind of coaching them up to take over. Because there is an article back, I think, when they hired him that the play calling duties eventually will go to Thomas Brown. When that's going to happen, I don't know. But my thought was when he was brought in with these young coaches that they're all going to be in this room together and share ideas, and he's not going to strong arm anybody. It looks like he's strong arming because it looks so old fashioned, and unfortunately he's an older person. I don't want to be ageist, but yeah, I hope he does what you're saying and puts his ego aside and just listens, because there were moments when Bryce looked awesome when he was scrambling around, making plays, buying time, and finding guys actually downfield. And I don't know if he saw them and was like, I don't like that. I don't know why he wouldn't like that, but
See,
it was fun.
I don't think it's a case of bullying. Maybe Frank Wright's looking around and going, "This roster just isn't built to do that. So let's have them do what it is they're built to do, until they're in a situation where they can be more successful. That could be the case. Like it could be a conservative approach in order to not expose, as opposed to a conservative approach because this is just what I do and how I do it.
Yeah, I feel you. All right. Well, Coach, you got kids behind you. I don't want to keep
Hey,
you.
they're all good. I appreciate it.
No, okay, but I do do you have a game coming up this week? Do you have a big
No, I'm
game?
not on any game calls this week, but definitely make sure that you check out all of my stuff at The Athletic. I also write for Giants Country as well about the New York Giants. So if there's any New York Giants fans up there your way, or people that just want
Oh,
to
there is.
keep a look at it. But if you're into fantasy, I do a lot of fantasy stuff for The Athletic. And then if you want, have some of your people come and check me out. Coach Gene Clemons, that's my YouTube channel. I more than appreciate it.
Okay. All right, I will sub to that immediately. But Coach, thanks so much. I appreciate it, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.